Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. So, this is welcome to Making Sense of It. This program is our gift to you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory, where we present some of the concepts of reality therapy and choice theory. And there may be some of them that, whenever you first hear it, it sounds, what in the world are you talking about? But once you can begin to see the meaning behind it and how vital it is, it just becomes a really good part of life that makes life more interesting. And so, what we're doing for the next few days, next few weeks, 5 weeks or so, Sharon Carter-Jackson and Sue Tomaszewski and I are helping you to see and to know the 10 axioms of choice theory. And we will be looking at it in a multitude of ways, how that a brief little statement can make such an impact on you, and that it comes back to mind whenever it's needed. So welcome everyone, and Sharon and Sue, welcome.
Thank you.
And we're ready to start. So Sue, I've already shared the screen with you, and so bring us up and we'll get started on looking at the 10 axioms. We're going to do 2 today and kind of do it in depth, looking at it from a quality school situation. So we're going to be grounding, the 10 axioms of choice theory that were originated from Dr. William Glasser and in his A New Psychology of Personal Freedom. So axiom number 1, the only person whose behavior we can control is our own. And there may be someone that you really want to control them, but guess what? All you can do is control your own behavior. Axiom number 2, all we can give or get from each other is information. And how we respond to that information, how we deal with that information, is always our choice. And then axiom number 3 is all long-lasting psychological problems are relationship problems. And that may sound, what are you talking about? Well, the person may be gone, either absent or deceased or whatever, but there's still some kind of a psychological problem. If it is a long-lasting problem, that's still hanging on with us. So we will look at that.
So I'm going to take a look at axiom number 1 first. And the only person whose behavior we can control is our own. And I have a couple of quotes that were in Dr. Glasser's, what he would call his mother book, and in the New Psychology of Personal Freedom. And one of the things he said was, when we are threatened with punishment, whatever we do, we rarely do well. He also said, think of how much time you spend trying to get others to do what they don't want to do, and how much of your time is spent resisting others who are trying to get you to do what you don't want to do. So now, as a member of the Quality School Committee, we did some links between this particular, between all the axioms and the criteria that we have for quality schools. So in quality schools, in GIFTS quality schools, we really look at criteria 1, a Glasser quality school is a joyful place where a positive, supportive, trusting, and learning and working environment is created and maintained. And really what we see is that this criteria is really presenting to educators actions recognizing that they don't have control of students. They only have control of themselves, which is very interesting because in schools, we're consistently talking about classroom management, like we can manage students in the classroom, where all we can really do is manage the environment. We really can't manage students, so to speak. And then we really emphasize criteria 3 in terms of this particular axiom, which is all students do competent work as well as some quality work each year. And the reminder is that these indicators emphasize the actions of others and that they can choose to facilitate with someone else's success, but they can't control another's behavior with demands, bribes, rewards, punishment, or embarrassment. All of those things that we tend to see in schools that aren't smart enough, in a sense, to do what it is that will really help work with kids.
Okay, on this one, we're going to be looking at some things that as we wrote this with schools in mind, they are directly related to schools and the school situations, but they also expand to any situation, whether it's a single person working with yourself or a couple, whether it's two people in the same area at work, whether it's committees, whole corporations or whatever. So let's look at number one, Sue. Dr. Glasser recognizes 4 general roles that we enter in as we relate with others. One is the counselor, people wanting to know our information and what we would suggest for them. There's the lead manager that is able to work with a person to help them grow and even possibly know when they are no longer perfect for that situation. The teacher has information to impart, but as Sue was saying, we can't control our students as teachers. We present it, but the way we present it can help them be thirsty for learning and building that relationship with them. And friend, we all have friends at different levels, and we have different levels of friends. And we need to recognize when it is appropriate, especially in a work situation, to be in the friend role. So, okay, let's look at the next one. My job, your job. This is a classic. No matter where you're at, in school, whatever work, a nurse, a police officer, whatever. What is my job? Define it, specify it, and then the person you're working in, what is your job? What are your responsibilities? And of course, we have that slash there because those two roles interrelate with each other. And sometimes it takes a while to work out. You know, say something, Sue?
Yeah, what we didn't include in there is the other things we tend to put in there is what your job isn't,
Oh,
what
right.
my job isn't. And then in some cases, what people do with your job, my job, is they also include our job. What is it that we all have responsibility for? So
You're right.
just derivatives of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to jump in here too.
Good.
Yeah. So Sharon, you were talking there about the 4 roles. So on different levels,
Right.
So if you have a friendship role with your boss, but it comes a time when the boss needs to give you some correction, how does that work in with the 4 roles?
Right. Well, if the boss hopefully is the lead manager, and the lead manager would know how to separate those roles and would be very clear when they would be talking to someone in a position of employment and not the position of friend. And the manager would be able to handle that and specify that.
And so that could go the same way with a parent talking to the child in a friend situation and helping to correct something, as opposed to being that boss management.
Exactly.
Sometimes what we also do is to clarify friend. Sometimes what we have done with it is we've said, using Dr. Glasser's 6 steps that we really taught, and I think it's in the quality school teacher, but I think it may be in quality school also. But he talked about the fact that who I am, what I stand for, and then the expectations piece is in there. What I expect from you, what I don't expect from you, what you can expect from me, what you can't expect from me. You know, and we go back and forth with that. So if we really clarify that friend is not necessarily like my bestie, but what is it when we have a friendship that we know what we can expect of each other. We know what we stand for. In a sense, we know what lines we can cross, what lines we cannot with a certain individual. So
and so then when we get down into looking at what your job is and what my job is, and you're stepping on it, we can present it in a more calm way.
Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Let's look at the next one. Class constitutions. In schools, many classrooms organize themselves around what they label as a class constitution, which is their mode of operation, what they have agreed and how they have agreed to operate as a classroom. And it would keep in mind these axioms and the roles and my job, your job. All of these would be worked into that constitution, as well as any learning expectations that would be part of the classroom. This could go to businesses exactly the same way. they're looking at it within the confines of whatever they're doing, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's a counseling position, whether it's a lawyer's office, as they work with their employees. It might not be called a constitution, but I'm certain there is a mode of operation that they would have.
And the last one we talked about in a sense already.
Right, exactly. But I want to emphasize how important this is in an organization for people to understand what the roles are. It really helps to have people have expectations that are not going to be met, that they know what the roles are, what you will do, what I will do, what I won't will do, and the same for you. And it clarifies a lot of things before they get muddied, because we've already set those there. And I think the next, these are instructional strategies, but let's look at them as way of working throughout. Cooperative learning is a group activity, and it is a form of communicating. It is 3 to 4 people usually that are working together on a project. Each person is held accountable for their portion of whatever the project might be. And this in schools could be within any subject area. Okay, if you look at it in business, quite often there are many committees. In social organizations, we're loaded with committees in those. And so they're understanding the roles and how to work cooperatively and who will and who won't. It goes back up those expectations of what I will, won't do, forming into how this cooperative learning group or organization would be working. And one more. Reinforcing effort and providing recognition. Okay. Reinforcing is not handing out a sticker. It is not, it is not the reward system that we kind of think about all the time. Reinforcing effort is recognizing someone. Sometimes it's simply someone's in a school situation would hand in a project, a paper, whatever, and you might say, how do you feel about getting this project done? Where are you with it? I recognize you doing the same. You're re-thing it, and you may be something that, wow, you're really working hard today. Same thing in a business and office. These things can help, and people need recognition. They need to know. They want to know that they are doing things well, and they want to know if they need help, and that recognition that they can have there.
So you're saying that in keeping with this axiom that the only person whose behavior we can control is that we can control speaking up and giving a compliment to someone else to help them be encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, and what's important here, and please notice and how Sharon said it. She said, gee, I appreciate you really working hard today. It's about the effort, not about the product. It would be recognizing when you're providing recognition, it's about the improvement. So it's very effort centered as opposed to product centered.
Right.
Yes, one more.
I just think that, yeah, thank you. I was going to just say that in businesses, that recognition is so critical, I think, to keep people on task. Because people quite often, they may stay after, and if they aren't recognized for being willing to take the extra step, pretty soon the extra step's not taken, I think. Okay, let's look at setting objectives and providing feedback. Setting objectives is critical no matter where you are. We need to know what we're doing. And I would also say what we're not doing in the same way. But we need to know where we're going. If I'm in an office working, I need to know that my objectives, my tasks for the day are this, my tasks for the week, my tasks for the month. Overall, I need to know what they are. It keeps me on track. It helps me focus. It helps me be doing work that would get good recognition. The part of that. Feedback. Okay, you need to know in the positive and as well as the negative sometimes. Wow, I noticed you've really been working on this. Is there some questions you might have? Are there some supports that I might be giving you? This seems to be troubling you. You've stayed on this, and I noticed you've worked a long time. I see that, I know the last time you did a similar project, your time paid off. In the meantime, is there anything I could do to help you?
Mhm.
So,
I think what we didn't say, Sharon and I working on the quality school committee, we didn't just pull these instructional strategies out of thin air. These are, they're well known, but they come from the work of Bob Marzano, and he's a meta researcher, and he has 9 instructional strategies that create greater achievement across the board with kids across the grade levels. So we've just chosen from those 9, just to clarify that. All right, are we ready for Axiom 2?
well,
Well,
look,
yes,
I was
think-
just, okay, I was just gonna say, so where are we? The only person whose behavior we can control is our own. Do all of these strategies and instructional strategies and behavioral strategies lead us to that? I think so.
yeah, from
I
what I'm
really-
hearing you say, it's taking us down that road beautifully.
I do, and I think, it really solidifies our need to be intentional about owning our own behavior and not trying to own someone else.
Right. Not let it just be an axiom, let it be a truth that sinks in
Right.
and that is practiced.
Mhm.
Okay,
do
let's
we-
go on to axiom 2.
There we go.
Okay, axiom number 2. All we can give or get from other people is information. How we deal with that information is our or their choice. And so we're giving information, we give information sometimes more than just verbally. We give information through our stance and through our demeanor and through our attitudes that are projected. So all we're doing is giving information, or we are getting the information from the other person. And how are we interpreting that information? So, Sharon, or Sue, you want to take over from there?
Okie dokie. Well, again, I have some quotes from Dr. Glasser's Choice Theory, New Psychology of Personal Freedom. He said, a teacher can give a student information and help him or her use that information, but the teacher can't do the work for the student. Another thing that he said in that book was, when you get out of that trap, you regain a lot of freedom that you voluntarily gave up when you felt responsible for students who choose not to work. So we again link the axiom with our criteria. So we saw it as linking with our criteria 1, a Glasser Quality School is a joyful place where a positive, supportive, trusting learning and working environment is created and maintained. And bottom line, to take a look at it and think, this criteria really does present educators with actions recognize that what is shared is only information, and responses to the information are individual choices. So it's a really good reminder for all of us. In criteria, we also link to criteria 2, which is about total learning competency, which is expected of all students. And students are instructionally supported until competency is achieved. And this criteria also links back to axiom 2, because the use of feedback, which educators will want to consider as information. So there's more to it. Again, Sharon mentioned before that we might actually be saying to kids, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of your work? What do you think of your effort? But there's some kind of grounding point for it. So there's probably a rubric of some sort. There's probably some exemplars. There's some work that kids will be able to compare to. And there's information that the teacher has shared, which is saying, this is how we're going to do this, whatever the particular learning is. What also comes up here, and just as a reminder, is we as Gift US also work with, obviously, William Glasser International. And that in this particular instance, this axiom comes up in a number of different verbiages. It's just a little strange that way, but it does. In this one, WGI International really states the axiom as, very simply, all we can give another person is information. Gift US is maintaining all we can give or get from other people is information, and then also added how we deal with that information is our or their choice. So just to know that there's some differences and clarifications that have come up along the way.
I don't think there's any difference in belief, but it's just the way they
Right,
worded the axiom.
And for clarification, one would hope.
Right.
Okay, so Sharon?
Okay, here we are again. And, I want to point out how much Axiom 2 explains and goes with Axiom 1. If indeed we only can control ourselves, we truly can only get information and we can give, but it's our decision whether we use it or not. So the two are just hand in glove with each other. So again, our behavioral strategies that we're using come from experts that we chose from and used, and they fit the best, we thought, within our education criteria that we were using for this particular presentation. So let's see. Okay, again, we have class constitutions, and we talked about that on the last one. So you see that this is an important concept about ways groups can organize and agree on how they will organize. Class meetings, this is for the smaller groups. And again, this is critical within the classroom. It would be if you take any of the departments within a business or organization, those separate meetings of how those individuals that are right close together within their work or activities, how they're going to operate as a group. And I statements, these are beautiful, aren't they? When we say something, if I can only give information to someone and I'm not controlling them, I say I, and then what I am willing to do, or where I see whatever the action is coming from. It is my internal understanding, and I'm expressing that to someone else. I'm not trying to tell them this is the way it is.
Sharon, in lead management, if the I statement, if someone is not doing the job as was introduced to them whenever they were hired, then the I statement, it would be to help them understand and to give a definition of what did you agree to, what do you understand your job to be.
It could be, certainly.
And helping them to use an I statement too, and then seeing if they're willing to live up to that so that they can continue to stay in that position and learn even more.
Very good. Awesome. Exactly. Okay, this takes us to the chart and to Dr. Glasser's choice theory. And this talks about the behavioral system is how and why we behave, those behaviors we have. We can also create new behaviors if we see a need to do that. Our behavioral system sometimes works very well and is very fulfilling. Sometimes it is not, because we do sometimes choose behaviors that are not as profitable for the person as all. And the behavior system, of course, feeds into the total behavior car. And quite simply, the car has 4 wheels. The front 2 wheels of acting and thinking are the ones that we have more direct control over. But those acting and thinking depend upon the information they get from the back 2 wheels, which is our physiology. How are we feeling? Are we head aching? Are we back aching? Are we tensing, whatever? Or do we have some sort of physiological issue that we're dealing with? Those back wheels always tell us how we feel and where we're headed. We get on those front wheels and we are thinking about and talking about what we can do if those feelings and physiology isn't what we want, what we can do to make a change, steer that car to meet the needs in a different way. Okay. In the questioning process, this is the heart of reality therapy. And in schools, it is so beneficial. And I would think, as Mona was giving the example of someone at work needing some counseling or guidance with their work, the questioning process would be that, when you do this, what are you wanting? Are you getting what you want? Is it working? Do you want other information? Can you make a plan? Are you willing to make a plan? But those simple questions of self-evaluation and helping, whether it's a classroom, whether it's a student, whether it's a fellow teacher, whether it's a parent, those general questions can be asked in so many different ways to get at that same information. And it is such a good guidance as we work with people.
One of the things just to be aware of is that in schools, we chose to use the phraseology, the questioning process, as opposed to reality therapy. And some of that gets into your job, my job, because for educators, they're sort of saying reality therapy, that some people say, well, it's therapy, that the counselors in the building do that. I don't do that. I'm a teacher. You know, so we just decided to go around that, and we use the questioning process as this phraseology for reality therapy, if that's helpful at all.
And journaling, that's strategies that many people find helpful if they keep a journal, to be able to write down those things. What have I been thinking today? What have I been doing today? What have I been feeling? Or what has my health been today? It might be that. It might be the success of a special project, the success of a student that hadn't been able to complete a project and they complete one. The journaling is wherever the person is that day, and it's a reflection of what they have done and maybe hope to do done that day. Okay. And then we go to our instructional strategies next. And again, guess what? We've got another one right back that we've had before, because it fits in so well. We need those objectives. We need to know where we're headed as we go down that road. Where are we driving that car? We've got those objectives ahead of us. We've thought and worked out. And the feedback is those people we pass along that road that give us encouragement or give us help in determining how to do something in a more productive way. I think that's it. Oh, there's one more.
There's actually two more.
Oh, okay. Then let's go for it.
So yeah, so the next one is non-linguistic representations.
Okay, there we are. Okay, so instructional strategy, non-linguistic. So we're not talking. We're not using language. That is our body language. That is how we speak, the tone of our voice. It could be the way I walk in the room. It could be the way I set a stack of papers down, whether it's boom or whether it's, any of those things that give information to another person without speaking. And it's
also
huge.
instructional, from an instructional background. We're also talking about charts. We're talking about pictures. We're talking about graphs. We're talking about all those other ways that we're delivering the information necessary for the lesson that isn't just reading text.
Exactly.
Or just talking and lecturing.
Right.
So
And
it's all those pictorials that go with it.
Right. And I know some people doodle, but that's another way of non-linguistic. As the lecture is going on, they can form pictures and write, and they can go back to that doodling and know where they're at. I couldn't. That's not my format. But, it is for some people, so.
The graphic there is showing beautifully how that when we hear something, it expands into all different directions, and we begin to see different things. And once going back up to those behavioral systems and total behavior, as we can have those charts, that we can begin to see it in a way that we can't literally see it visually.
Right. And as educators and most people, no matter what your career is, the more modalities that we expose and can interact, whether it's touching, hearing, seeing, speaking, all of those, the more modalities we use as we learn in school or in a work position, the better we learn.
And lastly.
All right. Summarizing and note-taking. Summarizing is being able to use my notes. I would put note-taking first. I'm an avid note-taker because I learn visually and I learn tactically. So I write all the time. And I can go back and then look at those notes and summarize what I've learned that day. Summarizing is a concrete way of solidifying information that you've just gained. And if we just had that information rolling around with us and we've experienced it and we've enjoyed it and we agree to it, but to make it our own, most of us need to summarize it, make some action plans of how we're going to use that information.
And so that goes hand in hand with the Axiom itself. We have
Exactly.
already received the information. And now
Mhm.
as we summarize and so forth, we're dealing with that information and how we choose to handle it.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
All right, well, that's Axiom 2 then.
All right, very good. Well, this has been great. So let's go ahead and stop sharing. And we will do 3 and 4 next week.
Awesome.
So thank everyone for being here. And thank you, Sharon and Sue, for your work and participation and explanation and of what you work with the quality school, but how you beautifully expanded it to families and to business and to life in general. So thanks for being here. We're going to stop the recording and come again.
Okay.